We think we're awesome, or part of the problem as a business owner is like nobody tells you that you suck, right? Or they don't tell you to your face, right? I don't think I really even got good at that until 2023, because in order to get better at a skill, you have to be self-aware that you suck.
Welcome back to Hot Tea with Umo and Bri. Today we're sitting down with someone who has changed the trajectory of hundreds, if not thousands, of dietitians across the country. We're honored to welcome Amy Plano, widely known as the Reimbursement Dietitian. Amy is a registered dietitian with a master's degree, a certified diabetes educator, and a licensed nutrition expert who's worked across clinical, academic, and private practice settings. But most importantly, she's built a thriving business focused on demystifying insurance for dietitians. Through her coaching programs and done-for-you services, Amy helps dietitians get credentialed, get paid, and build practices that are profitable, scalable, and accessible. If you've ever thought insurance was too complicated, unprofitable, or not for you, especially as a performance dietitian or sports medicine professional, this episode is here to change your mind. So let's get into it. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Yay. Thank you for having me.
So excited. You're amazing. I know that you've had a personal impact on my beginnings of my private practice, especially during COVID. So thank you for allowing me to really grow and taking all those fears away. But we're happy to so happy to have you on our podcast, and we can't wait to hear all that you share with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yes. And let's hop into it because I know, as Uma said, for me, as I was deciding on if I was even going to take insurance, I came across a masterclass that you had and I was like, oh, I actually can do this. Now wait a minute, so it made me kind of think twice. So, let's kind of kick it off with that. As being a dietitian who originally thought taking insurance is going to be a little too risky. It's going to be too confusing. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. I don't know if it's for me. What would you say? Why isn't insurance off limits? Why do you think so many of us think that it's too risky and off limits for us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's kind of the narrative that we were told, during our academic training. I think we spend a lot of time with people who we look up to. And I think, at least in my academics, the people that I look up to that I kind of held as Bible is they were telling me to run from private practice and they were telling me to run from an insurance-based practice. And I think you only know what you know, right? And so when you're around those people that are telling you this narrative who probably don't know any other narrative, right? Because they've been told the same thing. I think that's how we are all, I don't want to say brainwashed, that's a strong word, but I know for me, even to this day, there was lots of people in the beginning of my career that did not celebrate me and they looked actually kind of down upon me. You know what I mean? And now the reality is those same academic professors that told me no, and I don't want to say shame me, are the same people that are dialing up my phone, asking me to come speak. Can I design courses? Yeah. So I find that piece very, very fascinating, but I also think I think there's so much misinformation out there, to this day. I mean, I started in 2007 accepting insurance and we're now 2025, I'm pushing 2026. Right. And so I still, as somebody who's almost been doing this for 2 decades, I still hear the same narratives that I heard in 2007, only diabetes and CKD are covered.
Right.
The pay is really crappy. Getting credentialed is hard. I heard all the same myths, but for me in 2007, I was working exclusively in eating disorder and Division I athletes. And so my grad work, I worked in a protein lab, I worked in a human performance lab. And so I kind of entered into I was niche before it was cool. And so you know what I mean? And so it's in 2007, 2008, we didn't have mental health parity laws that really increased accessibility for eating disorder patients. And I focused just on super high performance athletes. And so, the one thing that hasn't changed is having an eating disorder is expensive, right? But I thought in 2007, 2008, if I could decrease the cost barrier to entry,
Bingo.
for people
That's
with
good.
eating disorders, especially in sports performance, because at the time, if like the eating disorder patient ended up like inpatient, it would be like, a $1,200 a night stay. That would
Mm.
cost the parents out of pocket. Maybe they were in IOP and that was another 20,000. So even though I did not know my arm from my asshole at the time, I felt that like if I could decrease the cost, right? Like, and really increase accessibility to one of the only experts in eating disorders at the time, I was willing to try. But I don't
Sure.
think that even like when I look, even with all that I do in terms of advocating, I still don't think like the myth still exists. You know what I mean? No matter
Mhm.
how loud I am, right? And I'm pretty loud.
Loud and proud, Amy. Loud and
Exactly,
proud.
exactly. But we still hear the same ones. It's like, you know what
Yes,
I
girl.
mean?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I am kind of fascinated by that piece. So one of the things that I'm trying to do to rewrite that script is I am really like, I don't even know how to say it. I'm trying to kind of like say whoring myself out, but I'm like reaching out to every single dietetic internship in the United States and saying, can I come speak for free? Like,
Mm.
can I come
Love
speak to
that.
your dietetic students, your master's students, whatever types of programs we have now? Because I don't even really I feel like I'm disconnected. But let's just talk about this. Let's get the conversation started because I feel like it was a different conversation when I was on the other side. But yeah, no, I do. I find that it's like my mission now to break down those myths, but like I don't know, it's like you have to dismantle them at such a like a young level,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
It's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's so good. I mean, and just to kind of hear your longevity in this and what you've endured and what you've seen. I mean, you know what I
Endured is a
mean?
key word. Endured is yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
amazing. Like
endure.
you really have created a roadmap based upon not only obviously your knowledge, but just what you've ran into. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh
Like all
yeah.
of the hiccups, all of the setbacks, all of the
Oh yeah.
no's that you've
Yeah.
turned into yeses. That
Mhm.
is amazing. Um, what would you say, like, is if there is anyone, do you feel like there's anyone that shouldn't take insurance?
That's a really
In your
interesting.
opinion.
No, I do. I think there's lots of people that that say, you know what I mean? I have lots of thoughts on that question. And so I think number one, and I know this is probably controversial, like I think historically dietitians are hard workers. I think there's lots of things that distinguish high performing private practice dietitians from, other dietitians who are just in private practice. And I think that the ability to, I think like there,
Mhm.
a dietitian has to be resilient. You know what I
Key.
mean?
That
And they
part.
have to understand that they are going to fall down more times, but they will get up more times than they fall down, right? And so I do think, honestly, that it takes a special type of dietitian because they have to understand the reason why they are making their services accessible and what,
So
like, you know
good.
what I mean? And so it's like, if you are not, like, if that's not part of your buy-in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Opinion, like you're gonna want to kill me by the end of like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And I tell people, like,
Facts.
I much rather be on a discovery call and be like, I don't think this is based on what you just told me. Like, I think you're gonna get your butt kicked. Like, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like,
I
because
love it.
you know what I mean? I know that that sounds really bad, like, but I much rather have a very honest conversation because I do think that you have to be intentional. I do think you have to ask better questions, right? Because even with me, like neck and neck with you, holding your hand, you still have to do the work. And so
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes when people give people money like me, to do things for them or with them, there is this concept of not needing to do the work. And,
Mhm.
I can help you do every single aspect of building and scaling your practice. But if you do not have the inner will, number one, and the ability to tackle, right? The ability to get knocked down, right? I was just laughing because I think I've done like 30 Medicare applications this past month, and just for like the
Wow.
counseling line. In like clockwork, every single time they will come back for corrections.
Yeah,
Like it's
you do.
hilarious because it's just like one thing after another. And like for me, I've internalized that as part of this. It's just like part of the thing that I do. But I don't think that, like, I think it's so funny to watch you have to be resilient because you can't fall apart after I spent 2 hours on somebody's application today. And then the whole Medicare portal shut down. But anyway, but that's
Oh,
what I mean. It's like,
girl.
that's just par for the course.
Yeah.
Just comes with it.
You know what I mean? And I think that mirrors, as somebody, I played Division 1 soccer and lacrosse, and I just think I think the private practice piece is very similar to being like a high caliber athlete, right? It's just it's like you will get especially in Division 1 sports, you will get pummeled. And you could have been like the all-star intern at your dietetic internship, the same way that I was I don't want to say one of the best players in high school, but I got my ass kicked in, Division 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Handed to me, repeated
Yeah.
4 years. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think you also have to be humble. You know what I mean? So, but I also think I want to come back to what I diverted from is the why, right? My goal for being an insurance-based dietitian is to increase accessibility to care, not for just the people who can afford my services, but for the people that actually need them. And I believe,
Yeah.
and I say that for me, and I don't think everybody has to. It's just part of my why, and it's part of who I am, and what I've
Right.
always done. So yeah, I do
Love
not
that.
think it's for everybody, because I think you have to understand that it's not, it's I think it's also with weight loss. I work in weight management, right? It's never a linear path down.
Never.
You know what I
Never.
mean? But
Love
people
that.
have that expectation.
They do.
And so I think if we're able to I think that's where I come into play is I really try to temper people's expectations in an insurance-based practice, because then they at least know what to expect, right? Because, it's if I tell you it's going to be hard, it's you know what I mean? You generally will believe me. But if I'm one of these business coaches that sells you on a pipe dream, then I don't think I've done you the service that you need. So, so I think there are dietitians that I will be fully honest with you, in my experience from doing this for a long time, that they're not cut out for this. And I say that from a place of love. You know what I mean?
Yeah, straight up.
The same way that entrepreneurship is not for everybody.
Period.
No, at all.
But I think the most important piece is to really be on the same playing field in terms of increasing accessibility. Because when the days are not super fun, which I feel like I say that every season of my life, but I'm going to say exceptionally this season. I just say that every season.
Right.
Why is my phone, my watch talking to me? But with that being said, you know what I mean? Because I think that why has to be there. And I'll be honest with you, I will say functional, although I work with a ton of functional dietitians, sometimes they come in and they think they're holier than water. And they, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I think that I think being an insurance-based practice is a perfect fit for that. But if they are better than their clientele, and they're going to talk about how seed oils are killing everybody,
Lord.
that's probably,
God have mercy.
That's probably problematic, right? Because it's just we are not on the same playing field, right? So yeah, I do really. So that's why in my coaching programs, I spend a lot more time than I used to, really trying to filter people through who's an ideal fit. And what I have found, what I can tell you guys, which is really amazing, is that when I look at my coaching clients, it's I feel like we are the same person. You know what I mean?
Love that.
I'm older, I have more Botox, than most of them, but we are the same person. And I think that's why we vibe so much. That's why,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's I look at my coaching clients and I'm they're freaking amazing. And then you know what I mean? They're cut from a different cloth.
Sure.
And that's why I always say, I say to my husband probably 5 times a week, is just I feel so blessed to be in your guys' company, because we're just on the same. So yes, I do really think that there are dietitians in different spaces that are not a good fit. And I'm very vocal about that.
I love how
Honestly.
real you always keep it, Amy. That's something that I've
real,
always
keep it a
appreciated
buck.
about you, because at this day and age, people need that. I think they get too much fluff. I think that a lot of dietitians that are seeking to potentially get into private practice, a lot of times they think about the lucrative opportunity, right? Like, oh, this is so great.
Yes.
But they don't think about the work that is required and the passion with the work that's required
Right.
in
The
order to really
conviction.
allow that to be what you want it to be. And it's about people first, really, money after that. It just kind of comes along with it. So I love the fact that you are able to just say, hey, like, this isn't what you think it is. And
Yeah.
this may not be the best fit for
Yeah.
you.
I
It's
think
big for me
people,
to
we've
hear that.
gotten away from like the serve first, like sell second.
Yes, we have.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think what most people don't realize is probably for the first 12 to 15 months of reimbursement dietitian, I didn't sell a thing. You know what I mean? It's just like, I just wanted to go out and help. And, not from like not to be like a martyr, but like I really wanted to create services that I did not have in the
Right.
early beginning. And so no, I had nothing to monetize, you know what I mean? My goal, obviously I like to think I'm a smart entrepreneur, but I do really think that, yeah, we've really gotten away, from, the serving first. And I don't
Yeah.
know if it's just like making a fast buck or everybody wants to make passive income without making active income.
Right.
I don't know. I just really struggle
Yeah.
with that. But if somebody is considering an insurance-based practice, I really think, and Uma, you can probably speak to this, is that like it probably takes at least 5+ years. You know what I mean? Like you're not really even feeling like you're standing on like 2 feet, even at like 3, 5 years. I mean, how long have you
Yeah.
been in an insurance-based practice?
Gosh, honestly, since 2019. I mean, I worked with
Yeah.
another practice for a little under over a
Yeah.
year before that, but knew quickly that wasn't it for me, that space. But I will say that you hit the nail on the head when you said it takes a special type of individual because
Oh, yeah.
looking back,
Mhm.
my grind was insane.
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted. I knew my why. And you even told me, she was like, gosh, I don't know if I know any other RD at the time that was in credentialed with as many people as I was
Yeah.
credentialed with, right? So I think for me, though, I think my situation was a little bit unique in that unexpectedly COVID provided an opportunity for my practice to grow exponentially very quickly. But I know that that's not necessarily everybody's situation. And with that being said, like, now it seems like this whole space, right, that we're in has massively shifted, right, from
Yeah.
these venture capital situations, which feel free to speak on that or not.
Yeah,
But with so
absolutely.
much uncertainty around insurance coverage, like how can someone set their business up for success? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
love that question.
long-term success, not that short-term, like, ooh,
Love that
everything's
question.
clicking.
Yeah,
But
literally. About 5 minutes before this podcast, I was just talking to my husband about this. And this is something that like I've never changed. There's a saying that like good, what's the word? Good guidance or good knowledge like never changes, right? And so like the basic fundamentals of doing business, like we kind of call it like first world principles, right? Like things that never change. And so before we go on to that question, which is a great one, I do want to just kind of pre-qualify that I do not think that your business personally was successful because of COVID. I think that you
well, I
thrived
stand
in,
corrected.
in COVID, but
Amen.
your ability to
Because.
be successful is independent of COVID, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like
Yeah,
you've been a hard
you're right.
worker you know what I mean? And so it's like, it's like that's not why you have the amazing practice and the team that you have today. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I just want everybody to like understand that because I'm also because I
yeah,
want to piggyback off and say we also like the situation that we're in right now in 2025 is we have like a gazillion bloated telehealth practices.
Mm.
That was not what yours was, from the beginning because of
no,
what happened with social distancing. But the reality is like
yeah.
you've always maintained a physical location. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you're right. Before
You
I
know what I
even
mean? Yeah.
accepted insurance, I always had a physical
You had
location.
like you were legit before like you needed to be legit. And so why I think that's
Legit
significant
to
is
quit.
that yeah, exactly.
Take it back.
Exactly. But that's what I mean is like I think one of the most important pieces is I think a lot of things. I think that we as a field collectively, number one, need to stop blaming telehealth companies for our success. So meaning like
Mm.
I do not believe in my heart of hearts that if somebody's practice is not busy, it's number one, not because of GLPs. And number two, it's not because of these telehealth companies. If a dietitian's practice is not thriving, I'm going to say this, and I know nobody wants to hear this. They
Keep it
either
real.
are not a good businesswoman or man, or they just are not a good clinician, right? Our ability to make money in insurance-based
Come
practices
on.
is made in our follow-ups, right? And so it's like, if you're a one-hit wonder, like Hammer Time, like, like Hammer, right? Like these are the analogies, right? It's like, he's bankrupt now, right? Like, you know what I mean? And so,
Yes.
right? Like, I love a good Hammer Time, but, and Jinko jeans and all the things that came
Oh
with
my
him.
gosh.
Jinko G.
But the reality is, like, those things are no moss, right? And so
Yes.
use that analogy, right? It's like that's what I mean. And so, like, the fundamental principles, I'm gonna say, like, you know what I mean? It's like I do feel, and it's like I do feel in my heart of hearts, we're gonna see major shifts with telehealth starting probably in the next 2 months, because I do
Wow.
not think Medicare is going to permit. I do not think we're beyond that expansion, and so I don't think that Medicare will allow telehealth the way that we want it. And so
Mm.
I think I just read it yesterday that it's potential that it's going to revert back, and so that would be September 30th. And so with that being said, go back to first world principles, which is in my practice we have a physical location. And the rules in my practice have always been, for employees, everybody needs to do, depending upon their status, at least one 5-hour block. And the reality is, even with Medicare patients, almost like I have numbers, it's something like 95% of all our Medicare patients want to be seen in person, right? And
Right.
so I think fundamental first world principles are we've really gotten away from extraordinary practices, because I just did an interview 2 days ago with a dietitian for my team, and she was on the floor in her childhood bedroom, with like a college flag behind her on her laptop. And I could only assume that, like, it just really hit me as like, that's how people are conducting sessions. You know what I mean? It is very
Wow.
rare. Like, I'm watching both of your guys'
Facts.
backgrounds. It is so rare that even when I'm on a coaching call, that somebody is in a professional setting.
Wow.
It's so bananas to me that, for the
Sheesh.
first 15 years of my
Wow.
practice, I went to an office. And so I do think that we will be slowly but surely trickling back to that. But I also think that, it is very bloated right now, because we have a lot of dietitians counseling from the floor, wanting to make $150,000 seeing 12 patients a week, right? Uma, you see
Bless.
that, like, with your, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Bless.
everybody wants, yeah. And so I think the bar has been lowered, right? Because remember, think about it. Like, I have, it's like I have some weird form of like diabetes, whatever it is. It's like, but my doctors do not do telehealth with me in 2025. Like, I get in my car, I drive, I check in. And so we're the only field that feels entitled in like righteous, right? Because like this is going to be a shakeup, right? I was just explaining it to my husband. Like, it's going to be like the house. I explained it to him, like, I think it's going to be like the housing collapse in 2008, right? All of these dietitians during COVID brought into this telehealth, like whatever we want to call it, right? So it's like they bought when it was really cheap, right? And so now we have an infiltrated, overpopulated, bloated system. And now I think on some level it might become crashing down, and I think it will level the playing field. So, that's just not, and that's not an attack just on these telehealth companies. I don't even think that, I very rarely even think about these companies. I think more about the dietitians and just how they are practicing. And I do not believe in my heart of hearts that it is the same level of care, you know what I mean, that like you get when you go. So it's like, I'm kind of on board with like CMS saying, like, is there some type of quality control that like we can make these,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I know nobody wants to hear that, but I just question it, because I work with thousands of dietitians per year, and they are very rarely in a professional setting, even when they're working with me. So
That is crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's like I just think we've gotten away from like true MNT. And so I think it's and I don't even think that it's oversaturated in the sense of like, you know, people say all this. It's like I always say, like, I am in Connecticut. Connecticut is the size of a toenail. You could not probably even find it on the map. Um, and like we see 500 patients a month, all within a 12-mile radius of a town called Orange. Like we don't have cities. We're not like big enough to have cities. So it's like this concept that dietitians need to be like internationally known. And like if one more dietitian asked me like what state, like which state should I get
Oh,
licensed in?
Lord.
And I'm like,
Woo! Please hit on that.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, where, like,
Yeah.
do you have patients yet? No, no, no. I'm
Right.
just wondering. And I was like, okay, like none of them aside from the one that you're located in.
Bingo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm in Connecticut. Like you know what I mean?
Yes.
People are like, what other licenses do you have? And I was like, I don't even have a license. I have certification. Like I have no intention of like, you know what I mean? And so it's like, and we like, so it's like, I'm just fascinated by that concept. And then people will say, well, I don't want to be like location, I don't want to be tied to
Bound.
a location. And I was like, last year I was in Singapore, I was in Dubai, I was in Amsterdam, I was in Miami, I was in Mexico. This year alone, I will be in Thailand, I will be in Hong Kong, I will be Tokyo, I will be in Singapore again, all in the next 3 months. And so it's like, and I run and see patients.
Mhm.
So it's like, I don't know. I'm just confused. You know what I mean?
I love it. No, this is what our listeners need to absolutely hear, because everything that you said is spot on.
Mhm.
The professionalism piece is, it's like, where did it go?
Yeah,
Were you
where did
ever
it
taught?
go?
Is there
Where
any
did it
value of
go?
it? You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I was always
So
saying to my husband that, like, in the virtual piece, I think I'm going to standardize backgrounds. Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
That
Because I
part.
was trying to explain to him, like, I could, like, this is my real background, but I could, like, pretend, like, I don't know why people aren't even faking it. Like, you could be in
Yeah.
a $1 million South Beach house, change the filter, and nobody would even know. But, like, still, like, I can see, like, your background in, like, your University of Alabama flag. Like, it's amazing, but, like, I don't, like,
nobody
yeah.
wants to see that.
No, it's like, it's not, yeah, it's like,
Be honest with the people, Amy. Be
yeah,
Let 'em
honest with the
know.
people, because they need
This
to
is
know.
what-
Keep it a buck.
yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
confused. I'm just
This
confused.
is what this pod's about. The real.
But I think we're like, I could understand that piece, but it's like the expectation is I have to be making $100,000. And I'm like, but
Right.
you don't have the same expenses. You don't own a gym like Uma does, or we do. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have operating costs. Like,
Listen, because
paying off.
woo!
Yeah, exactly. So I just think it's, yeah, you know what I mean? And then people are like mad that they're going to get dinged, that they're going to get paid less for telehealth. Well, like, do you pay $3,000 a month for a lease? No,
Listen.
like, no, you don't. So it's
a
like,
game
that's
changer.
cool. I'm not mad at you, but like, yeah, you should kind of make less than I do. But anyway.
What systems, Amy? Love it. We love this. What systems or
Yeah.
processes are like what you feel is absolutely non-negotiable? So you've already hit on, like, listen, just be professional, for crying out loud.
Mhm.
But as far as
Period.
systems and processes, what would you say are like the non-negotiables in order to be successful and sustainable?
Yeah, I think like that. I just want to kind of speak to the term sustainable is that, I think in a world where we are like fascinated by quick fixes and impulse and, all the business coaches are talking about like making passive income in the DMs, whatever that means. I think like the goal, it's like, what is that? But anyway, I think like the most important piece, and I think that we often miss it, is the concept of sustainability. Is like, I'm not worried. I don't spend my time thinking about like, am I going to be here tomorrow? Is my business going to be making six figures tomorrow? Is it going to be making six figures like, end of the year? It's like, I want to be here decade after decade. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Sustainability. And I really look at insurance as a vehicle to do that because it increases access to care. And then there's accountability, right? Like many of these plans, have unlimited visits, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like you are a good clinician and you retain your clients. Sustainability on some levels should just be a byproduct, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Of your
Mhm.
inputs. You know what I mean? And so I think sustainability, is kind of focused on like how we see our practice and not like I said, it's like for the dietitians who have the ability to endure short-term pain, will always be the ones that short-term pain for, like the long-term gain will always be the ones that are successful. When it
It's
comes
a
to,
whole word.
yeah, you know what I
Bar.
mean? But it's like almost like delayed gratification, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like even if you talk about something like a membership or a podcast, right? Like memberships and podcasts are only as valuable as their ability to compound, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to be willing to suck and have really low numbers until you build up and it compounds, right? And so those are kind of vehicles that people look at to monetize, but the reality is that like that's a long-term gain, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
in terms of systems, what's really interesting is that we've always as a practice kind of it's like I as much as I love like bougie things, when it comes to my practice, we've always just bootstrapped it because there's like, I think where I see dietitians, like, because from a system standpoint, like things don't need to be expensive. And I always struggle kind of with like setting up scholarship funds for new dietitians in private practices or like where should I support dietitians most? But what I always really struggle with when I come back to that is the startup costs for dietitians and systems in the beginning should be fairly low, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's overspending, then like we probably have a problem there, right? So in terms of
Yep.
systems, like, I didn't even have an EMR. Like until 2020, I did not have an EMR. And the only reason why I got an EMR in 2020 was because that's when COVID kind of sent all of the dietitians like everywhere. And I was so fearful of HIPAA that, you know what I mean? We needed a secure portal to capture information. But so I think like the only system that most dietitians need, and I do now think of it as a non-negotiable because I see dietitians like trying to like in 2025, like not spend like the $40 a month for an EMR, and I'm like, what are you doing? Or like, like not pay for a clearinghouse for their claims and try to do them for free in Availity and then like blow up the public Facebook pages like when they can't even figure out like how to submit, you know what I mean?
That
And
part.
That's
Woo!
crazy.
and I'm like, I promise you, I said, I'm not just saying this because I make, over $1 million a year. Like, I'm saying this like for your own sanity. Like, let me give you like $45 and like go pay for Claim MD or like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? So I think the only systems insurance-based dietitians need is an EMR of their choice and they range, right? Like Calyx is like dirt cheap. It's like 70
Mm-hmm.
bucks. It's not amazing, but it's 70 bucks, right? It's like you can be resourceful with that resource, right?
Facts.
It will do
Mm.
all your scheduling, you know what I mean? And so I honestly really feel that the only system somebody needs is an EMR. And like I said, people will always ask me when like which is my favorite one, like probably the cheapest one. Like, you know what I mean? What you know what I mean? Like you don't have the ability to be judgmental. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
Right.
exactly.
Listen,
Especially
when
you're
you
first
start,
yeah,
starting.
like do you financially, and that will work for you. But I
Girl.
think what
man.
people like, I think where we run into a problem is like typical dietitians are very type A and they do analysis paralysis. And they're like, well, but this
Mm.
is this, but it's not that. And like,
Yep.
I was using practice better, but it's this. And it's like, it will stop people from moving forward. And the reality is like, there's this concept that money loves speed, right? And so most dietitians have like a decision making problem, and their lack of decision or their indecision is a decision in and of itself, and it keeps them like spiraling, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I tell dietitians like choose a system. I promise, like especially if it's like your first try at it, like you'll love it. Like I just don't like certain things because I've done too many, like you know what I mean? And so
Right.
yeah, so I think that's honestly the only system. And it's like, that's the only system I think that we even like use as a practice. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like simple
Love
Google
that.
Docs. People always say to me, like, is there like a better, like, I want to do metrics or I want to track my team? And they're like, they're looking for this fancy
Mm-hmm.
CRM that's going to give them analytics. And I was like, dude, like Google spreadsheet, like,
Yep.
every single
Drop it
thing.
in there.
Yeah, it's not fancy. I don't even really know how to do like it's like I like YouTube like formulas. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yep.
like
Yeah.
I just think
Exactly.
dietitians make the system part too hard and they use it as an excuse not to get started. Yeah.
I love that. Man, yes. I'm here for the honesty because you've just so many things you've touched on. Like we've spoken about on this pod, like one of those things like your why, like, and it takes a certain kind of person, not only to be in entrepreneurship, but also to like take insurance, like just so many good
Yes.
things. Oh, so amazing.